the values that is holding this society are not values that support the universe, that support the environment. You know, these are very negative values that is now holding, which is a false kind of holding because it's crumbling apart.
So in this way, if nothing much happens, we're facing the prospect of this particular civilization dying out. And we're even facing the possibility of the whole human race dying out, because what we're doing nowadays with our technology is not just affecting some small local area where a couple of villages or a couple of towns. What we do is on a scale of the whole planet. So you could say that what's happening nowadays is maybe the most serious there has ever been for human beings, because we are now dealing on such an incredibly big scale. The whole planet is the scale.
Human being carries poisons in their mind, and those poisons is ignorance or unawareness, greed, hatred, and fear. So if people are run by these tendencies, which are inherent in the human mind, then we see what we are seeing right now.
We claim that we are very civilized and everything, but are we moving towards a period of when we will self-destruct ourselves, and we will also be just in museums, and therefore they would refer to us as a civilization that no longer exists? Is that possible? Well, at least it looks like right now that it is the way it's going to be.
When human mind loses its capacity of clear seeing, it develops a very linear perspective. And the linear perspective leads to almost a kind of a, you may not think it in that way, but you begin to close in with your own self. So earlier as well, in different periods of time, but more so today, it's because of the individualism that has come in so much. The self and the self-cherishing has become such a big factor for everyone. Everyone is taught to think for the self. It's your happiness, you know, it's your choice, it's your freedom. So the self becomes so small. I always say we begin to imagine that the whole universe comprises of just 3 citizens, I, me, and myself. And that's how we think, you know, when you walk into a situation and an environment, it's mostly asserting yourself into that situation. Now, when everybody in the world begins to act that way, then there is imbalance, there is disharmony, there is no basic tolerance and patience.
So unconsciousness in life, the fact that we don't care about what we consume or what we take or the way we exploit this earth, the way we exploit nature as in general and even human beings, is because we simply lost the contact with our heart, with our true self again, the heart. So when we think of ourselves as an individual, we behave as an individual. We protect the sense of I. I am, and therefore I protect myself, but I don't care so much about the rest. When you gain again the sense of who you are, which is completely connected to everything, everybody, nature as a whole, and that everything is completely interdependent, completely connected, you lose automatically, naturally, by having self-knowledge, self-understanding, the sense of the individual, and you think in terms of the collective. You don't think, I want more for myself. You know that if you want more for yourself, someone will have less. And that someone is within who you are, is like you. So there is this sense of collective responsibility, and that makes a huge change in the way we behave in the world.
Basically, it's just this pursuit of self and what you think the self would need, whether it is power, whether it is material wealth, whether it is happiness, or whatever you may be searching for. But as long as you get it, the repercussions of it you don't care about. And that's, I think, largely led to all kinds of struggles that we have today in the world, whether it is the situation in the politics, whether it is within the communities, whether it is in the environment. All of these are because the self has taken over the responsibility of thinking about everybody. So this sense of responsibility is not there.
Something is not programmed in a right way or not educated. Something is missing in the school education itself when we look over it. So in that part we need to look what is missing. What is missing? Simply they are missing themselves. The whole education of school education, I am not against the school education, but the way to progress is the whole school education is to how to earn money, how to earn, how to live, getting more money and more position. That's the whole idea of school education. Through that you will get happiness and joy and position and power. Is there anybody talking about how to get peace, how to interact with a male or interact with a female, or how to interact with the Mother Earth? What is nature? What are they? What is life? These things are not coming up. That kind of view, when it comes up, we will be more balanced. When we balanced, naturally consumer kind of behavior will not be there because you are content. You consume, yes, to your content level. Not consume more than you need. And are you satisfied after consuming more than you need? Not satisfied, something is missing. So that when we balance, naturally it affects the capitalism and the economy and the welfare of the world also.
Increasingly, I think we are allowing other people to think for us. We have lost the capacity to think for ourselves. In this case, for instance, media and consumerism and what the other people are doing is so strong, particularly media. Media, you allow media to be your thoughts. You begin to follow exactly the way they want you to think. Therefore, what happens is you have lost the capacity to think for yourself, to rationalize for yourself.
If any solution is to be found, if any answers are to be gotten, I think it will all come down to the root of education and acquiring of knowledge. Knowledge in the sense that such a knowledge brings about and really illuminates the mind in developing critical intelligence. Now, this critical intelligence has to really arise as the potential and the ability to discriminate, to discern between what is constructive and what is destructive. Education that does not build the critical intelligence of this wisdom aspect that can discriminate between what are those causes that are destructive to oneself and the others and what are constructive things that we need to embody and cultivate, then such an education probably is not really going in the right direction.
As I see it, we're in a period on this planet now where there is a huge development taking place in the realm of the mind and the intellect. But that's not all that we are. But what has happened is that the mind and the intellect, I would suggest, have become too important, and that people are getting stuck in it. I see it as a step along the way. I don't want to say it's a disaster, but many people today are also understanding that the mind needs to work together with the heart. There needs to be a balance. You see, if the mind and the heart work together, people can be very creative, they can be brilliant, but they're not going to create stuff that is going to be destructive for other people or for the planet, because the heart energy wouldn't do that.
That minute a sensitive person is considered as a sick person. Especially nowadays, it's like, oh, you are sensitive, oh, sad. It's so foolish to tell that. Because a sensitive person is a creative person who thinks more. So they are not being right way educated, the basic law of human, basic pattern of human. They are educated how to earn money, how to get position, how to get power, how to enjoy the life, no idea. How to get peace, that's not taught in the schools or any education system.
Apparently then, you have a very good life, a pretty full life, and yet you feel something deeper is missing. And I would say, whatever deeper is missing is the fact that you don't really know who you are. You need to go into the self-exploration as to who you are. That is where you have to start with, because now you know the common things. You already have everything that people want, and yet you feel something deep is missing, which means you have to go into yourself and find out who you are really, because you are not, there's no place for you in your mind right now. It's always doing things, having things and all. But then you should find out who you are, what's beyond all of this. And once you go into that self-exploration as to who you are and the answers come, you have already will lose that feeling of not having anything deep. You will be touching the inner core of yourself.
No matter how modern the world has become, you and I, day in and day out, what we are trying to do, whatever we try to accumulate, whether it is building something or looking for a job or a relationship or whatever it is, the bottom line is you're looking for happiness. So if you're really looking for happiness, it would be good to sit back and sometimes think, what is really going to give me happiness? What's going to really give me contentment? And in that may be the sparks the answer that it may not necessarily be in the things you're chasing. And the answer may not be extrinsic, but the answer may be within one's own self. So that sort of, I think, is an inspiring quality that leads a person to exploring the deeper answers. Self-inquiry is absolutely important. It's about understanding the power of your mind. You know, your mind shapes your attitude and your conduct. What you're saying, how you say it, the decisions you make, your relationship to feelings and emotions, all your physical actions, and everything that you do every day is spurred on by this very powerful mind. And this mind brings about some kind of idea about who you are and what you're doing. And so introspection and knowing your mind, to really be able to see mind as the basis of every attitude and conduct that you are engaging in, is very important. Because if you look at the first teachings of the Buddha says, you think, therefore it is. So it is a very important statement, is that we think, and our thinking is what is giving colors and flavors to everything. So if the mind that thinks, flavors and colors everything, it makes sense to make sure you understand your mind properly. And it is not anybody else's mind. It's a very powerful mind. It is the designer of all experiences, and therefore it makes it very important that you do look within and look at your own mind and understand it.
Self-inquiry means, for many people in the beginning, just beginning to take a look. You know, it might be, why do I always end up feeling nobody likes me? Why do I always end up blaming my mother for everything? Why do I always attract men who mistreat me? You know, this is a very important kind of self-inquiry. Because what happens is when you start looking, if you're really looking sincerely, then you're starting to ask, what's inside of me that's attracting this kind of situation, instead of pointing the finger at the mother, the man, or whatever. It's a big step forward when people start taking responsibility for what they perceive to be their self on that level. It's a great step forward. So self-inquiry at that point is really starting to ask questions that might be uncomfortable. It's much easier to blame somebody else, you know, than look at why you are attracting this all the time.
Coming to the self-inquiry, in the starting times it's so challenging. When you sit, your emotions may come up and frustrations may come up. So you will not be liking to sit so easily. Self-inquiry people tell, oh, it's difficult. No, start with a small point. Just as the first path, start to watch your breath. How you're breathing, just witness the breath. Because just think, the breath, we think we are controlling the whole world and managing everything, and everything is in my control. No, not even your breath. The moment the breath goes out and it's not ready to come in, you cannot push it inside. Same opposite also, if it goes in and it's not ready to come out, your game is over. You are just a history in this world. So, such a fragile thing is the human. So there we need to watch this great essence of energy which is going in. So there when we witness, it starts to expand our horizon, which we start to relate to the whole universe as one single living being. One single living being, then you feel the pain. If you get your finger injured, you feel it. You feel the pain. Same way, when we live as one single human being, one single living being, we feel the pain of any destructiveness happens in the earth. If honeybee dies, you feel it. Because we are deeply connected. Such connection expands our flow to compassion, which is not even love. You cannot put words. Such a expansion, which gives a great quality of life.
when the chips all fall, you find it all boils down to you. Me. You. Me. If it is so, then that's where we have to begin. If we want to make any change, whether it's personal or societal or universal, you have to start here. So to start here, we have to figure out by asking questions, who really am I? What is this name I have, this body I have? What does this all mean? Why was I born? What is the purpose to this life that I am right now in? So these questions have to be answered, and if you ask these questions, that means you are looking out for the answers, and the answers will come. If you are sincere, the answers will come. And so this process of self-inquiry, when you start dealing with that, it's not just an intellectual search. It begins with an intellectual search, but the second step of it is in applying it to your life. Applying it to, I have to now, knowing that this is the truth, I have to conform to the truth by behaving this way. Conforming to the truth is very important. So self-inquiry followed by actions make not only you in a very, I don't like to use the word blissful and all, but it does make you a much more balanced person, much more integrated person, and also rather peaceful a person, peaceful with himself. Then without you realizing, you are influencing the people that you are coming in contact with in small ways, in big ways. This is a very natural thing that happens. You don't even know, but subconsciously you are affecting other people because of what you have done to yourself and the changes you have made and the life you're leading. And this is important because if more people do that, definitely the world will be a much better place to live.
When we look what all the issues we are facing in the world, all those issues are mainly due to ignorance about myself. In a way, shortly, self-ignorance is the cause for all the problems. If all the problem is due to self-ignorance, then very easy to tell the solution. Self-knowledge is the solution. If self-knowledge is the solution, there is no option to anybody other than looking into the nature of who am I. It's a very important question. Because when we live here, we think I am just body, mind, sense complex. Apart from that, I don't have any existence. When I die, I died. When I born, I born. But born and death, in between you have a body, you think I am, that short time I am living, after that no more I am. But therefore, it's very important to have, if I want to really solve my problem, I need to really inquire into the true nature of who am I, the self-inquiry. Self-knowledge is the solution for all the problem, most of the problem, basic problem.
Without looking within and understanding ourselves, understanding our mind, how is the mind functioning, it is impossible to read something in the outside. We have tried that in our case, for decades, of going to peace demonstration against a factory, against this, don't cut this forest, which are all fine if they have their place and purpose. But we have also seen many people who do this with anger, with frustration, with unpeacefulness in general. And at a certain point, that was an awakening for ourselves and saying, well, if we really want to bring peace in the world, we have to find peace in ourselves. And it doesn't mean totally peaceful in the sense of enlightenment, but just a certain quality of peace, a certain quality of friendliness, which then automatically transfers itself into society or into family or just, you know, the neighbors, just in your direct environment. So it's very important to really understand what's going on in your own mind, what triggers you, what is your reaction on certain situations and people, and unravel that and come to a deeper understanding, and then you become more like a human being. And with that will automatically express itself into society and the people you deal with on a day-to-day level. If you don't have that inner understanding, you run on automatic, you know. So somebody says something, you are upset, you react, you know, with words or action. So that's automatic mind, which doesn't have a certain space within, can reflect, holding back before going directly into words or into action. So it's very important, that part of inner reflection and inner understanding before anything can happen in the outside world.
Most of our suffering has to do with trying to find security. And what seems to happen is, though we are connected and we know we're dependent on countless creatures for every breath and every moment of being alive, there's also a feeling of being a separate and independent being. And as a separate, independent being, we feel hurt sometimes. And feeling hurt, there's naturally a contraction. There's also very easily fear. And in that contracted and fearful state, it's very difficult to feel anything else. And then our alarm state, our alarm system, starts to heighten. And from there, it's difficult to feel intuition. It's difficult to feel that there's anything else. In that small mind, it's impossible really, to feel that there could be big mind.
When we look on the people who are in the society, how they are moving on, is a lot of fear-based. Insuring themselves, it's not bad to have insurance, but totally having a fear in every aspect. And the whole idea of why the fear comes, because before I get old, I need to enjoy the life. If it is partner, there is a big fear. She may leave or he may leave. If it is a school, if it is children, if it is job, everything it's run by fear-based movement. If it is fear-based, then you are not really living the life. Constantly you are using only 20-30%, if I use a percent, of your potential humanity.
It is difficult that many people don't see the consequences of their actions today. It's a bit of a difficult subject to address, because you cannot force people to want to become aware and awake. You cannot force it. You know, it's like taking a rosebud and saying, I want this rose tonight, so I'm going to squeeze it and do this and that. No, it's not going to happen. So in every human being, I would say, there is a spear, a seed. And when this seed has been watered enough, and that really means has been exposed to certain ways of being, certain teachings, certain people, that trigger something in this seed, it will begin to grow. And then people will start looking for nourishment. And they will follow maybe this teacher, that teacher, get involved in this group, spend time in solitude. But you cannot force the opening of the seed. But one thing that does happen is the more people who begin to awaken, you know, in Danish we have this saying, "Der mere mellem himmel og jord." People begin to realize there's more between heaven and earth than we thought. And when a lot of people begin to realize this, because we're all part of the one collective energy field, then it starts triggering awakenings in other people. And, you know, I often talk about the collective energy fields and how anything we do, if somebody is in distress, has a very difficult psychological problem, maybe they have a problem with anger or self-pity or jealousy, if they really get help and work on it so they become free of this, then actually they're helping to set free other people with similar problems. They're not doing it consciously, but this is what happens. Because we're all part of the one consciousness ultimately. So anything we do to help to lift the consciousness and to heal this planet, nothing is in vain, even though some people might do something that seems quite insignificant. You know, just like every morning when they get up, they bless the neighbors and, you know, water the flowers and bless the flowers, or whatever they do. It's all part, we're all part of the collective energy field, and it will have its effect.
I mean, I think it's not so easy to say how anybody would decide on wanting to transform their life, because I don't think there's any reason really. You could say it just happens, but that is maybe too mystical to say it just happens. So probably it happens out of some life circumstances, that you get into a difficult situation, you lose your job. So then there's some fear. How am I going to live? I have no income. So then you're quickly comes to kind of fear of death, because, you know, I have no money, I can't buy food, how am I going to live? So something profound like that happens, and then you find yourself looking inside, and then maybe you come to some kind of realization that the way you're thinking is not really a true way of thinking, and you start to get some feeling, there could be another way of looking at this. But this is not so easy, because we're also conditioned, we're also robotic. We're in a kind of movie, common movie. And so it's not easy to see that. It's like, I don't know, if you're a fish and you're always swimming in the river, why would you go and investigate what it's like to swim in the ocean? Because it's salty. I mean, you haven't got a reason. So, I mean, it's what I could say, because I've met, of course, many people who've made some kind of inner decision. And I think these inner decisions happen for all kinds of reasons. And maybe in the end we can say there's some kind of mystical reason which is beyond our ability to really understand it.
To give space for others to even awaken to the wish to even consider another way of more sustaining and sustainable living. Maybe patience with, so I think when we hear the word patience, we think of a little bit shut down because we're used to hurry and fast is better. But patience is more of trusting, and also attunement to that others also, with respect, they are also made of reality. They are also deeper than what they think they are. And so rather than relating to the person's limitations and limiting patterns and pain, we can tune into everything and be in a space of meeting and knowing that there's no need to force, that aggression in this way would actually slow things down. Trying to hurry will block it. So it's very counterintuitive when we have this the dominant culture in our veins. But it also means being willing in that maybe spontaneously we cross a line and say something that we know might sound strange. Or we keep silent when someone is looking for reassurance or an answer or a promise or a guarantee or just agreement with some sort of worldview, and just silence sometimes. The person feels a little uncomfortable. So being willing to let people, when we are trapped in our conditioning and our programming, to feel uncomfortable, a creative unease to set in and be a dawning of, wait, what's going on here?
When I was a little girl, my father always used to say, "Why can't you be normal like everybody else?" And he meant well with this, but I wasn't born to be normal. And a lot of people, so a lot of the young people today, they're not what my father would call normal. And they have a sense of purpose. And then there are others who don't have that sense of purpose yet. And they're not seeking, they're not looking for anything else. And it is the way it is. I'm not into people rushing out trying to save other people. But when people start awakening and they keep their focus on dealing with their own emotional difficulties, maybe trying some meditation so that they're not caught up in the grip of the mind, especially the negative thinking. When people really start doing this, I would advise them, to really stick with techniques that work for them and not to be too judgmental of other people who are not there yet. Because this wish to awaken or to understand more about life, it's not triggered in everybody. And I feel it's important not to make a problem of what's happening collectively, because many people are waking up. But if people can focus on their own difficulties, sometimes it's much easier for people to get involved in somebody else's problem or what they perceive as somebody else's problem, instead of going deeper into their own wounds. Mm-hmm.
Now, if we ignore the past memories, if we ignore all the wounds of the world, all what we've been going through as a human experience, if we ignore that, it is stuck within us as fears, as blocks, as the impossibility, because of these unconscious memories, to go beyond that, to go beyond fears and not into trust. So it's one thing to understand intellectually who you are. It's another thing to heal yourself, to come back to this inner world and to say, okay, from that place of perfection, what is it that I resist? As old identification. I am bad, I have fears. It's all okay. You can have any thought you want. You can be as blocked as you want. But just the recognition of them is is opening, is you opening to that field of consciousness. Because if you keep things unconscious, they drive you. That's where the mind drives us. Selfishness, greed, I want more, because we act out of fear. You watch your fear and you come back to trust, because that's the trust that is inside all of us, the space that is here, that intelligence. So you can open to that, you watch your fear, and sooner or later it will dissolve. And that's the fastest and quickest way to help yourself and the world.
I find it encouraging today that in many companies, some of the techniques that before would have been used for people on a spiritual pathway, they're being used in the companies. You know, people have, like, I don't really remember what they're called, but where they go off together as a group and have a weekend of inner exploration. People in companies practicing mindfulness together. People having what in the 70s and 80s we used to call encounter groups. You know, meeting as a work group and having somebody guide a kind of encounter group kind of situation where people really say what they feel, also about each other, but without blaming, without judging, and where people are encouraged to be honest with each other. Then the more honest they are with each other, the more comfortable they can be. And if you've got a workforce that doesn't have to pretend, that is really comfortable and relaxed together, they're going to be far more creative. And two of the things I feel are most important is to help people develop a deeper connection with the heart, and the love in the heart, the power of the love in the heart, and also to develop their creativity, whatever that looks like. Because people who have a deep heart connection and people who are creative, it's not so easy to manipulate them and mess around with them. They are more free and more open, and they can look at the world and see what feels right for them and see what's not so good. So creativity and a deep contact with the heart, these I feel are very important on the spiritual pathway, but also in society and in the workplace.
So the second stream of meditation includes starting to feel what were the moments of joy today, this week, this life. What do I really love to do? And sometimes what I really love to do is, I remember one man in Canada who loved to play guitar, and the guitar always stayed in the closet. So it's not just what I want to do or what I think I want to do right now, get out of my way, but some kind of more secret love. And the secret love is not something that me as an individual person just decides to like. It's a kind of liking or openness, soft spot in us, as Chogyam Trungpa calls it, that we find ourselves with. And when we connect with that guitar or that walk in nature or that swimming or that painting, dancing, etc., there's a natural kind of, there can often be a natural kind of absorption, less self-conscious. I'm in the music, and even if I'm tempted to think, oh, did I do a good job? Did I pronounce it correctly? But there's a more easily falling into a flow and a not showing or hiding, but being and letting it have me, kind of. And that is important, the two together. A kind of more regular sounding meditation with loving what we love.
There's a famous story, spiritual story, which I could try to do a quick version of. So one day a prince was riding in the forest, and in a clearing he saw a beautiful woman. He immediately fell in love with this beautiful woman and asked the king, "I'd like to marry this beautiful woman I saw in the forest." So Daddy the king said, "Okay," and they married. And once they were married, of course, he had ideas about the first night of the marriage and such things. And when they got to the royal bedchamber, the wife said, "Stop. I'm not available until such time as you have gone through a transformation and you can really meet me." So the prince was extremely shocked, but however the princess was extremely beautiful and was a very lovely human being, and she offered to teach him. So she became his teacher instead of his wife, and sure enough she was somebody who'd gone through a transformation. And so what happened was that gradually over the years the prince went through this transformation until one day his wife came and said, "Now is the moment, we can be together." So then of course the prince was very excited and happy about that, and a bit later he became the king. And because he himself had transformed, he then in his whole kingdom shared his new understanding, and very soon there were kind of institutes teaching what he'd learnt from his wife, and gradually this whole kingdom lived in a completely transformed style. Yeah.
But if you really become in tune with yourself, you don't become strange, you become very natural. So some path on the spiritual path may isolate you from life, but actually the real state of consciousness is a natural state, the oneness with the world from a place of clarity. And that has a very natural feeling, very natural feeling. So the whole happening, the whole scene is life itself. And that's where there is a bridge between spirituality and the world. It doesn't have to be different. We don't have to isolate into a cave to find who we are. We have to embody spirituality in the world, in the body, to make the world a very sacred place. We don't have to be strange out and to separate and to isolate. We have to completely know who we are and find the naturalness in us.
For example, when I started to meditate about 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I just meditated. I didn't really understand at that time that it could have a profound effect in my own transformation. So this was just something I was offered. I didn't really understand it. I started doing it, and gradually, you could say it changed my whole life, because meditation is involved in looking inside. And up until that, I started doing that, which was about 30 years old. I was always looking on the outside. So I wanted to buy a new car, or I wanted to have some fun. I was always looking on the outside. Where's the party? You know? And so to change that and start looking inside happened to me in a way as a kind of accident.
Ultimately, I would say meditation is becoming the witness. But there are many steps along the way. And for many people, the beginning stages of meditation is to be able to find a quiet space within, where they are not caught up in the thinking all the time. A lot of the psychological problems we have today they wouldn't be there if people were not so identified with their thoughts.
And I can still remember my first meditation feeling very, very strange, because I was told that I should close my eyes and sit still for 1 hour. And of course, I immediately thought, well, that seems like a waste of time. I could be doing a lot of stuff in 1 hour. But anyway, that was the beginning. And then, of course, years later, I could myself maybe teach meditation because I had discovered some of the values of meditation. But that was a whole process that took many years.
I have a personal take on meditation. I think all that meditation does is just put brakes into a pattern that you have of thoughts. It just helps you to break because you have been going through this pattern of thoughts and actions, and somewhere deep inside of you there is a sense that says this should not go on this way. And if you feel that way, then it is good to meditate. And meditation doesn't have to be very complicated, I feel. Meditation is rather simple. It just simply consists of getting yourself into a position and place where you can be with yourself with no disturbances. Then you can observe your thoughts, the natural flow of thoughts. Then you reduce those thoughts. When you keep reducing without fighting with your thoughts, then you find at some point there is no longer thoughts. But the power behind thoughts will remain. In other words, you are peaceful yet vigilant. And that helps you to put a brake to patterns that you have. And that is the only benefit, I think, that meditation will bring to you.
But essentially speaking, meditation is to familiarize. To be able to really familiarize yourself with your own mind's continuum, to have such a deepened sense of balance of awareness, that you observe what you're saying, you observe your own speech, you observe your own mind especially, and the world of your mind with all its feelings and thoughts and emotions. And in that mindfully being observant, you're able to have a much more better sense of how it is functioning. And if you know how it is functioning, you begin to able to realize that you have a deeper, you enjoy a deeper quality of being able to make the right choices. You can choose your thoughts. You can choose how your mind functions. And that then would then be the basis of your attitude and your conduct, and sequentially speaking, then that would be the actions and the result and the experiences of the actions. So therefore, the art of being able to be observant and watchful and look at your own mind and familiarize and work with it, that sort of is what encompasses what today is called meditation. If you just sit and then breathe and you close your eyes, some part of your abilities to develop some peace or some result may arise from it, but that would not necessarily be bringing the essential qualities of what meditation is. Meditation is to familiarize, to become very familiar with your mind, to look and know how your mind works. And then you have, as a human being, the awareness that can direct the mind constructively.
So it is, in the beginning, I would suggest, finding a quiet space within. Some people go in the heart. Some people use other techniques. Or they quieten their breathing. The more quiet and relaxed the breathing is, the easier it is to just begin to witness the thoughts. I encourage people to witness anything that arises, but it doesn't mean you stop it from arising. You know, thoughts can come, feelings can come. You can be meditating and there's a loud sound outside of the window. You just let the sound come and go. So ultimately, meditation on the beginner level and the intermediate level also will take people to a place where it's easier for them to deal with themselves and with life. Things are not such a problem anymore if you can witness them a little.
Because when you do meditation, you are looking into the mind closely, not stopping the thought, understand? You are observing all your thoughts. Whatever thoughts are coming, you are observing. Earlier you are not able to observe. Now, since you are sitting quietly, you will be able to look into your mind more and more clearly. Like that, when you really practice for a long time, you can clearly see what is coming, what is going on in your mind. Therefore, you can really be a master of your mind. The mind will be a very good instrument. You are handling that instrument. Therefore, you can use that mind for self-inquiry. Otherwise, if you are not really mastered the mind, mind will take you somewhere else.
Meditation is reconnecting with your inner silence, with your true self. When we are so much surrounded by the world and the mind activity and everything, it's a help to not to lose that connection with a space inside where there is silence and peace, and you find it's a support. So we lost that connection, and meditation can be one path. And this path is both wonderful and can also be a trap, because you can start identifying with something special and lose the connection with the world. So it's beautiful to get reconnected with your essence, but let's not forget that this essence, this space inside, is flowing through everything. And as long as you're not opening to the world and to your ego, which is the same in a way, and to your ego, because you are attached to a specific state of consciousness, you want to go higher or more into peace, you're losing yourself. Real self-inquiry is not losing the sense of I and the quality of awareness. Where do you find awareness? Awareness is one with what is high, and it is one with what is low. It welcomes everything with the same eyes, with the same outlook, because it knows that any thought, any state of consciousness, whether I feel good or I feel bad, doesn't matter for presence. Presence is simply the openness to what is here and now, with clarity. I'm not confused. If I feel silence inside and peace, all the best, fine. But if it goes, it's also fine, because I know who I am. So that place is total freedom. You can welcome everything, and that's where the transformation happens. So this, in a way, is true meditation, and it can be done in life simply through your understanding of reality.
If you go on this path of self-transformation, self-inquiry, it's a tremendous help to have a teacher. And unfortunately, this is a bit out of fashion. So 100 years ago, it was quite natural. If you wanted to be a carpenter or a bricklayer, whatever it was, you would go and find, somebody who was a master, and you would be his apprentice for some years. He would teach you everything. And then in your turn, you would teach other people, and it kind of continues like that. Yeah? But now, especially in the age of the internet, nobody wants to be under the apparent will of a teacher. Everybody thinks I can do it myself. I just click on Google, and I can get all the information I need. And so why would I need a teacher? You see? So I mean, unfortunately, we've lost contact with the value of a teacher. So I would personally say that if you really want to make the deep transformation, you deeply, absolutely need a teacher.
We need a help as a teacher. It's very important. With the help of the teacher, he already gone through this process. Therefore, he can really help. Also, he got help from his teacher. There is a big tradition is going on, teacher-student tradition is going on. With the help of a teacher, a person approach a teacher and he can really show his interest to know, I really want to know who am I. And if you earnestly ask this question to a teacher, definitely teacher will help one who is a really teacher. Therefore, approach a teacher, ask him and listen to his words and put those instructions, those advice into your life.
Well, every person, every individual human being has this remarkable quality of awareness, because it's your mind and the basic goodness is inherent and the wisdom is inherent as well. But how many of us don't really, how many of us are able to realize it without someone introducing you to that, pointing you to that? So the concept of teachers is very important, gurus is very important in that sense that we are utterly grateful for those who introduces us to our own beautiful mind, those who teach us and direct us to all the methods and the means through which we can really realize and understand, and in that way build our mind to being the basis of genuine happiness and goodness for oneself and the others. So those who need the guidance to be shown, to be introduced, and then not only introduced but then to give us the means and the methods and the wisdom and the potentials of how to develop that, then for that reason the teachers are very, very important.
The ultimate choice that any human being can make is to have a choice to become more conscious. And if we want to get things like world peace, the only way to get world peace is if each individual gets peace. So my peace is affecting world peace, but some kind of concept about world peace hasn't got much meaning because the world is made up of many individuals. I used to go and demonstrate when I was a student in London against the Vietnam War. You know, I was against the war. And then I could have become a politician, but somehow I realized that it doesn't really work, you know. I can go and scream as much as I like for my whole life and it won't really make much difference. And somehow I got the idea, well, I have to change myself. And if I change myself, then maybe I will change a few other people also. And maybe they will then also change a few other people. And then an enormous transformation will happen. But it comes back to the individual. Everything comes from the individual.
If we really rest in our human beingness, or you could also say in our human full potentials of presence, that automatically has an influence into the macro.
A person who really mastered his mind and who knows about his true nature, such person can really inspire the world. He has tremendous energy within. Also in his presence, people will feel more and more comfortable, more and more confident, more and more loving, more and more harmony. Therefore, just being, just be aware of being that in that state of mind, you can influence the people. There are several examples in our tradition for that. For self-inquiry, one who really understands the who am I, mastered his mind, he can just being his surrounded around him, the person can get inspiration. But that itself is a contribution to the world.
So if a human being is resting in these hard qualities, in these qualities which make a human being more joyful, more happy, more present, then that automatically, like the guitar, resonates in other people, and they feel attracted to spend more time around a being like that. If a saint has lived in an area and everything around there is saturated with the qualities of the saint, and you would, let's say, people have forgotten about that the saint has lived there, and somebody takes a rock and brings this rock to the house. This rock carries the qualities of the saint, and you bring, so to speak, the saintly qualities in that house, and it's further radiating. That's how subtle this quality is, and works forever, because it's our true nature.
There's a description, very clear description. There is a clear description about the one who realized and one who is really grounded in himself. There is a sign is given in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Arjuna is asking a question, how can I know a realized person? Then Krishna is answering that question, one who is happy with himself, he is the one who is realized. My happiness is not depending upon anything. My happiness because I am happy. Therefore, there is no more independent happiness. A person really recognizes that I am the source of happiness.
To be born as a human being, our purpose being born as a human being is liberation. So doesn't mean that you have to step out of society, or if you have a family, if you have a business even, you live that. But you live it with mindfulness, you live it with presence, and that quality will automatically not only broaden your own inner beingness and inner qualities of being a human being, but it will automatically also influence others.
But once people do start putting their foot, on the way to more freedom, sooner or later, that wish for freedom, it's going to start burning brightly within them, and the wish to know truth. And this will encourage them to be able to move outside of their comfort zones. There's a lot of people on this planet still live in their comfort zone. But more and more people are waking up. And as I've said so many times to people, you know, we're part of the collective energy field. So if one person wakes up, that triggers something else in somebody else.
To go alone requires courage, just like a lion. Lion has tremendous amount of courage. Lion never look back, it just go ahead. It's really a majestic look. Lion, he goes alone. Look the sheep. When the first sheep goes, everybody follows.
At the same time, because of this herding instinct and not being able to think for ourselves, we seem to have lost the courage to act upon some very important values, important way of life, which deep inside of us we know that is the way it should be, but we are not able to act upon it. First of all, because it takes a little bit of courage, and that courage comes from conviction. You have to have the conviction that this is important. Once you have the conviction, you don't have to explain to anybody why you behave the way you do, because you have a certain value system that is coexistent with the universal order. Your personal order should coincide with universal order. Then you have the courage to act because you have the conviction, the proper conviction. Blind conviction, negative conviction can also be there, but it doesn't coincide with the universal order.
For example, in the Buddhist tradition, we emphasize a lot on examining. The Buddha himself stresses very much in his teachings that one should not just follow or relate to the Buddha's teachings and the Buddhist practices by simply assuming it to being good for you, but that you have to spend time thinking and learning and examining, and to see whether the wisdom and anything that it is imparting truly makes sense to you, that it is something that you really feel from your heart is beneficial for you. It has to be your decision. And for your decision to manifest, you have to learn, you have to practice, you have to examine it very carefully. And I think that's a very healthy approach. When that healthy approach is missing, then people base their belief not upon one's own confidence, one's own understanding, but belief because somebody else said it or somebody inspired you to do it. And in that way, the confidence is very temporary and it's very built on a very fragile sort of a foundation. But when you examine it, when you really clearly contemplate and discriminate and then see sense in it, and then that confidence is very much your own experience speaking, direct experience speaking. And I think that's what then shatters any tendency for a philosophy to become dogmatic.
One of the things that can hold people back from following what they instinctively begin to know would be the right path for them, this might be breaking away from the family or letting go of their old job or going to live in an alternative society. One thing that can hold people back is they're afraid of what others will think of them. This was a big issue, I would say years ago, more than it is today, because more and more people are breaking away. And so more and more people have the courage to do it. But people can still be very identified with the image they've built up around themselves, even though it may be a false image. You know, being the perfect wife or being the perfect father or boss or whatever. And you know, the price they pay for this is really falling into the gift of who they truly are. You pay a big price for staying safe.
We need to attain what's called a critical mass. So if more people are aware of what's happening and they are impelled or motivated to make those positive changes that will swing us away from the path of self-destruction to one of preservation and progress, then maybe we will avert that danger. But for that to happen, it has to reach what's called a critical mass, enough number of people who are so-called light givers, who are people of knowledge who can turn things around. Then if we cross that critical mass, we will be okay.
It's very important to have a self-confidence. What I want, what I value, what are the value system I am really upholding. All circumstances I have to really be with it. For that we need courage. We need not be afraid people will go away from me, therefore I want to do. You compromise. Why you compromise? Because you are fear of the losing some certain things. A courageous person is not at all afraid of losing things. He is the one who is really grounded in himself. He has tremendous amount of self-confidence. Let world go, but still I remind here. To have that conviction, you need lot inner strength.
For example, after many, many years of working on my inner transformation, if I compare my daily life now with the daily life I had, 30 years ago, it's completely incomparable. So I don't really remember that I suffered so much when I was 30. I wasn't crying and getting upset every day. But now, for example, I can say I live with a base of peace inside me. I live with a base of love inside me. And I don't have to do anything for that. It's just there, and it nurtures me every day in my life. So if I compare that kind of situation with how I was when I was 30, I would say that when I was 30, I was suffering. So it's about some kind of relative idea about what is suffering, what is not suffering. Yeah? But there's no doubt that there is the possibility that any individual, if they are ready to go on a kind of journey, and this is an inner journey, if they're ready to go on this inner journey, which might well start with meditation, then the end result of that after so many years can be a dramatic kind of transformation in the quality of daily life.
The life's ultimate purpose, as the Buddhist teachings, or as I see it, as the Buddhist teachings present, is just this incredible gift of a human mind, brilliant and wonderful human mind, and you are the heir to your own mind, and how important it is to be responsible to make that beautiful mind truly beautiful.
Denmark, there was a man who received cosmic vision. His name was Martinus. And Martinus saw so much that was happening and going to happen on this planet thousands of years ahead of his time. And he saw the many difficulties. But he always said, allt är så gott. That means truly everything is fine.